Now, the media, says my next guest, only covers mental illness when it involves a celebrity as entertainment, which is an interesting proposition. Andrea Tyrimos is an artist whose exhibition Bipolar Picasso has been one of the hottest shows in London in the last few weeks. And all around me is just some of her work, portraits of people like Tony Blair's former spin doctor Alistair Campbell, the boxer Ricky Hatton. Celebrities, yes, but I'll get her to explain that particular twist in just a moment. But all people who've battled with issues like depression, schizophrenia and self-loathing. Well, Andrea Tyrimos is here with me, as is the former Premier League footballer Leon McKenzie, who is in the studio. He tried to kill himself in 2009 and sat for his portrait to be painted for Andrea. Welcome, both of you, to the programme. Delighted to have you both. Andrea, to you, first of all. I referred there in the introduction to what you said about celebrities, and yet you've painted celebrities. What was the twist then?
Basically, I'm really frustrated by the way that the media only tends to cover mental illness when it concerns a celebrity. I think we're all in a bit of a celeb-obsessed culture and society. So I kind of wanted to turn that on its head and use the celebs to then encourage people to come to the show and then hear everybody else's story, see everybody else's portrait, and hopefully see members of the public in the same light. So
like the two portraits we have here, these giant portraits in the studio, so as well as the celebrities, you painted people that we don't know about, and their stories were also told in the same way. Why were you attracted to this whole area?
I have several people close to me who suffer with different mental illnesses, and they're really just not that open about it. I think it's fear of being judged by society. I do personally think it's kind of like our last taboo, the way that we used to call cancer the big C and things like that. And I think it's just not as readily accepted as maybe a physical ailment would be. It's often referred to as like an invisible illness.
That's very, very interesting. And Leon, let me take you back to 2009. I mentioned there in the queue that you tried to kill yourself. What had happened to get you to that place?
It's a journey. I think if I look back, I think depression has always sort of been in my life. I've lost family members to the illness, sister suicide, uncle to suicide. My own journey going through my own life circumstances, and at the back end of my career suffered from some horrendous injuries, which then messed with my mind and state of mind, and led me to a very vulnerable position.
And it led you to a hotel room, taking pills. You made a call to your father. I was reading an extraordinary account from him, having taken the call, driving frantically across London to actually save you, which he did. The most extraordinary thing about that story, though, was I read that you then went in to training. Is it right? The next day?
That's correct, yeah.
But didn't mention it.
That's right, yeah, because the problem we have is with the situation that I was in at a particular time, so many things would have jeopardised my position, whether it be in a team or everything else. So I wasn't brave enough at that particular time to come forward and say, I'm struggling, just in case I was judged. I think at that particular time, there wasn't enough awareness.
So a bit of like what Andrea was just saying. Andrea, just tell me a little more about the pictures themselves, because as I was saying, they are giant pictures. They're portraits, but not full portraits. What was the thinking in terms of how you executed this?
They did actually turn out quite different to how I initially envisaged them to. I thought they'd be full portraits and everything else, but as I was painting them, I realised by keeping the hair and the clothing a lot more minimal, and like you said, almost unfinished, it forces the visitor to really connect with the portrait. So as you're listening to the recording, you're kind of forced to stare at these very brave individuals.
I'll come to the recording in a moment, but the eyes are very important, aren't they? All of you can see that if there was a sort of common theme, it's that. In terms of the anguish we were hearing there from Leon, how did you try to get that into the pictures?
It's obviously very difficult to get the inner self, on a portrait where it's, the outside self. But I think when I met everybody, something that came across to me very strongly was that sense of vulnerability, but also that beautiful strength that comes through the eyes. So I tried really hard to capture that with all of my portraits.
Leon, you sat there, you were very open. You talked about being closed earlier by not telling your manager about what had happened, but you were very open with Andrea in terms of the sitting. I mean, when you look at the painting, what do you think of it yourself?
It's overwhelming and fantastic. Honestly, the young lady, Andrea, she's produced such credit in regards of what she's trying to reach out to people, how she's trying to tell these stories through, through art basically. And like you say, the eyes don't lie. The eyes tell a very big, deep story, and it was a pleasure to be able to.
And telling the stories with art, and Andrea was referring to the fact that there's audio as well. All of you ended up recounting and taping the audio. I want to just play to our viewers a little bit of it from Ricky Hatton, the former boxing world champion, because as we see his pictures, let's hear a little of what he said about his mental decline.
When you're winning, everything seems, life and success and everything, you being successful, everything seems to roll along like perfectly, if you like. But then when I started to lose fights, and in particular my first fight, I found out that maybe I wasn't quite strong enough and equipped to deal with it mentally. To be honest, it hit me very, very, very hard. I was just sat about on my backside all day, just pondering and thinking.
It's really interesting listening to that. So he was fine when he was winning, but suddenly things closed in on him when he started to lose bouts. Now, I mean, you've turned now to boxing, but what is it about sports psychology that almost the thing that made you strong and get to the top can sometimes undercut you as well?
That's correct. It's a pressure environment that we're in. But as sportsmen, we want to win, obviously. And I think sometimes when we come to the back end of our careers, or it actually finishes, is a realisation of, okay, we can't really perform how we used to, and sometimes it's just reality that kicks in, and some of us deal with it in different formats.
Andrea, a minute ago you said and talked about taboos. There's a lot about raising awareness, but I wanted to ask you, what do you think it is within the public that they need to get about mental illness that they perhaps don't get at the moment?
I think, coming back to what I just said before, people refer to it as an invisible illness, but I don't even fully buy that, because I think, if I was to have a problem with my kidney and you couldn't physically see that on me, I'd still have a basic level of empathy from you. People just need to understand the brain is an organ in our bodies, like with any other organ.
You don't think there's empathy at all?
There definitely is empathy, and we're getting better, and we're getting better with awareness, but nowhere near is what it should be. Because like even Leon just said, he wasn't brave enough at the time, and it's almost like, but why? You shouldn't have to be brave. It should be like if you had any other physical ailment, we should be able to just say, I'm struggling. Within
society itself, sometimes I think we're too quick to judge and point the finger. I think there's got to be an approach of how people address people with mental illness. What that does is that the people that come forward then are brave enough from a better approach.
And very quickly, can I ask you where you are along this journey? Because I know your father asks you virtually every day about how you're feeling, the family around you, but where are you? Because you've had more and more troubles even after that suicide attempt.
That's correct. Well, you just answered the question yourself. Even having troubles more so after I even attempted my own life. I now fight for the English title a week Saturday. That just goes to anyone out there that is suffering. That you know what, no matter what is you're going through, whatever is you do, you can fight back. And my motto is to fight it, and that's what I do day in, day out.
Well, you come from a boxing family, so that's exactly what I would expect. And you're also, by talking so publicly, trying to help other people.
It's about inspiring now.
Thank you so much for coming in and telling us your story. And Andrea, thank you too for bringing all that fabulous artwork in and discussing this issue with us.